Welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2. This is part 2 of the lesson about harmonics and the flow of energy through the chakras. One of the first things that I would like you to begin considering in this discussion is the idea that, like in this image over here, we are looking at these nested chakras and that we are seeing them as receding into the distance in much the same way like we could say with 1 point perspective. Here is the distance and then here we have lines of perspective heading into the distance. We look at this collection of chakras here and we understand that they are receding into the distance of time. Okay, so and I will describe what I'm talking about with this. This, if you cannot see the color properly, is the red chakra. And of course that is so large that goes off the edge of the painting. But that would be the foreground. That would be the thing that is closest to us, that we can see most clearly, is the physical. And that as we recede in time, slightly further away are the emotions, and then slightly further away is the intellect, and then slightly further away is unconditional love, all the way up to our connection to the divine source. Our connection to the divine source is the furthest away from us in time because it is the closest to infinity. It is where you plug into infinity. So Violet does not have to go very far in order to reach infinity. It's only come into the realm of time a tiny microfraction. But energy that is at the level of red, this physical energy, has come out of eternity. It has come out of infinity. It has slowed down the most and has become the most prevalent. When I say closest to our viewpoint, closest to the viewpoint of the observer who is in the third dimensional realm, which is where I presume you all are as my audience members. So this is the foreground, the physical realm, and the far distance is here, infinity. And what we're talking about when I talk about the perspective of these nested chakras is the flow of energy from infinity through all of the chakras, through your experience and understanding to the physical realm, and then back through your emotions and your intellect and your heart and your higher centers to infinity. That is the basic flow of energy. It is like a loop from, here's the source, all right, from the source, and then out into the physical realm, and then, of course, back to the source. And this is information that I spoke about in Level 1. According to the Rainbow Journey is the name of that lesson, but I reiterate, because now we're going to go a little bit further. We are going to further describe the nuances and subtleties of energy as it's flowing around your chakras, and we're going to still relate that to the solar system. So the first thing is, here in this image, I have the basic toroidal energy field, and I have that same shape here in this smaller image. But we know, because we are in the advanced course here, that is shorthand because we all have two of these chakras that are perpendicular to one another. And Level 1 information has also taught you why we have them, but I can go over that again. I can reiterate that we have these two sets rotating perpendicular to one another because it creates a gyrostabilizing effect. So the first chakra system is created with these two chakras that are created from spheres that are spinning around like this. Okay, and then once we have created that central apple core shape of these two vortexes with their points touching each other, what then happens is this edge of this vortex starts to rotate around in this direction, and this one rotates around in this direction, and what we end up getting then is this little edge swings around and makes another circular vortex here, and that energy goes down to this point, and this edge swings around and makes another vortex here, and that energy goes into this point. And so that is basically the genesis of why I always draw, a shape that has 4 lobes like this, because essentially that is the implication of having 4 vortexes that are all facing the middle. Again, this is review, but I bring it up for the context. Because we do not just have energy flowing in one simple pattern. Energy does not simply flow around in a circle like this. And I'll draw that again in white so you can see. Here, in through the top and out through the bottom, and then back around up to the top again. That's like the simplest energy pattern possible, but that is not the only way that it flows. All right, that's one way that it flows. Here's another way that it flows. In through the top and then out through the bottom here. And oh my goodness, doesn't that look exactly like the sketch from part 1 of this lesson, where I began to tell you about harmonics, where you have the top part of the wave and the bottom part of the wave, and that's analogous to taking a sphere like this, cutting it in half, and then putting the other half around like this. So that more complex energy pattern flows in through the top, down through the bottom, and then circulates up around through the top and down through the bottom. And we have this beautiful figure 8. But it's not that simple. And that's why I have brought up this other diagram over here. It's not one that I drew myself, but it depicts this phenomenon so beautifully that I simply had to use it. So the pattern that I was just showing you is that we have energy that comes up from the top, goes down through there, and then comes up around here and goes down and around through there. But at the same time, we have another rotational effect with energy going around in this direction. And when we begin to add that rotational effect, it is very similar to what goes on with the weather patterns on planet Earth. The Coriolis effect. This is what makes Atlantic hurricanes spin in a counterclockwise direction, but makes southern hemisphere typhoons and other tropical storms, lows, spin in a clockwise direction. This is the fluid dynamics of our atmosphere, and it's the same set of dynamics that govern the flow of energy around the chakras of your body. So then what ends up happening is you end up having a flow of energy more like this. And I hope you could see that clearly, and you can also see in this diagram over here the 4 vortexes that are created as a result of that energy flow. Okay, let's also go into a deeper understanding of the harmonics and the relationships of the chakras and what that means, because I was getting into that in the previous segment of this lesson. So you remember I was talking about the places where the nested waves interconnect. Well, here you can see very clearly this spot is a special spot. That is where this is the orange chakra, okay? I'm not sure how clearly the colors are showing up. And this is the yellow chakra. And you can see how the yellow chakra, this bottom U shape of it, sits directly upon the upper surface of the orange chakra. So this is about how your mind, and remember these are whirling energy vortices that are spinning around, and then they spin around like this. So this is a spinning energetic apparatus. If you could imagine like the Harlem Globetrotters and the way that they spin basketballs on the ends of their fingers. This is like a stack of spinning basketballs. And of course, I have just described to you how they are stacked up through time. They are spinning through time. What does that mean? If you have ever heard something on reverberation, like a voice that is on reverb, it sounds like it's going off into the distance. Or the effect of a siren wailing and how you hear it go louder and then go softer as it goes past you. This is the sense of a wave that is stretched out through time. So here we have the interaction of the yellow and the orange chakra. Here's another one. This little spot right here, that is where the lower edge of the green heart chakra rests within the bowl shape of the upper edge of the emotions, the orange chakra. So look at that beautiful interconnection between the green chakra here and how those wheels are spinning around like that within this beautiful bowl shape of the mammalian emotions. This you could envision as a type of, a bowl right here, and that other apparatus spinning within it. So now hopefully you're starting to get more of a multi-dimensional understanding of what your chakras are and what I mean by nested within time. Here's another important curve. This is truth. This is the throat chakra, and that rests right on top of the intellect, the upper surface of the yellow chakra. Here's more. Here is the lower surface of insight. This is our indigo Christ chakra, rests on the upper surface of heart, unconditional love. And have I not been speaking many times through many lessons about the importance of unconditional love and cultivating it as a foundation for insight and the higher faculties? So as we understand energy flowing through this system, we understand that it is energy flowing through time. I'm talking about the rate at which energy enters and then circulates through these various energy centers, makes patterns. Just like musicians playing music are dependent upon keeping time. That means you're keeping the beat. You're working with the other musicians. Well, we could think of each chakra as being a musician, and this white light is the energy or the music that is circulating through according to the proper beat. And all of these are spinning energy centers, and all of them are whirling around at the right rate. And when all of the musicians are working in tandem and whirling around at the right rate, what you experience is called health and vitality. And when one or more of the musicians is not whirling at the right rate, then what you experience is dis-ease or a sense of dis-ease. And now let's talk about the harmonics of the solar system, because this is really part of the cosmic story and cosmic origins, and also explains about the dis-ease or the state of what is not comfortable in the solar system at the moment. So here we are back to this lovely image that I chose because it shows with perspective the heliosphere, the edge of the outer chakra of the sun, and the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is right here. The asteroid belt occupies the exact place where, according to the harmonic pattern of the universe, one would expect to find a planet. So the harmonic pattern of the universe is that wave-like pattern that goes like this, where we say, ah, look, things are getting larger and larger and larger. And if I extrapolate that, then I get, bigger and bigger and bigger. So there are certain places, just changing colors here so that, we had a line before. I'm just trying to draw a line across here so that you can have a similar view. There are certain places, certain crossings of that line where it is a place where matter may comfortably collect according to the cymatics of the universe. Hey, look, here's a giant universe-size vibrating plate. Hey, look, here's specks of dust and interstellar gases. And now here's a giant wave that begins to animate this plate. And as I vibrate this plate, all these things begin to vibrate, and what they do is they start to vibrate into orbits, and these are these concentric orbits of the planets, and these are analogous to the concentric nested proportions of your chakras. However, when we look at our solar system, what we find is that in one place where there should be a nice, healthy, functioning chakra, instead there is a band of rock. There's a lot of debris. There's evidence of destruction. And so we understand from that in the overall story of this body, that there is a place where disease originates from, and that is that particular chakra, the area between Mars and Jupiter, that not only is out of alignment, but that is literally, it was destroyed. Well, now I'm going to get back into lesson 18 of level 1, which is about galactic history. And this has to do with basically the story of life in the solar system and how it is connected to the galaxy, and what life was like really before Earth and human culture was even created. And the idea is that there was a planet in here, and it was inhabited, and it was destroyed, and the beings that were those inhabitants are our ancestors, or are the ancestors of what is currently humanity living on Earth. And that those beings, after the planet was destroyed here, then came to occupy Mars, and that there was another destruction there. And this is, of course, over eons, over a culture that arose and then changed over eons. And then I talk in lesson 18 about how those disembodied consciousnesses then came to inhabit Earth and the vulnerable earthly bodies, and basically created disease by pushing chakras out of alignment. And that, like, a chakra is spinning like this, it's up and down, it's vertical, it's nice and in perfect alignment, but that when you push it over, it's like pushing a top over. All of that energy starts to spin out, and you can siphon off all of that energy. And that is what disease is. Literally, chakras spinning out of alignment, and the energy of that chakra, the difference between this position and this position, that energy is being siphoned off by a negative entity, or an entity that wants to feed off of it. And the reason why that entity has to feed off of that instead of having its own innate divine connection is because of the events that happened on Mars. And the events that happened on Mars are connected to the events that happened on the planet that became the asteroid belt. And we now see through all of this that the disease of an ordinary person in current time and place of Earth is connected to the events that eons ago created the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And I was describing in the lesson directly previous to this about learning to love all aspects of self, and the aspects of self that might come from another star, a far different star system, and that might be consciousness moving at a vastly different rate than you are moving at. So remember that we are on a journey of evolution of consciousness. And when I have an image like this, this is all about the refinery of information, the refinery of consciousness. I've spoken about this before, from the red, most dense level through orange and all the way up to infinity. And of course, we receive information from the divine source, and it emanates outward towards the denser worlds. Well, this process of refinement that is happening on a microcosmic scale on your own individual body is also happening on a much, much larger scale on the level of the solar system. That consciousness is being refined through these various levels of the chakras, and each one of these orbits is analogous to a chakra, and that each one of these orbits also represents a level of consciousness or a world where consciousness is being explored. So I cannot say it any more clearly, but all of the planets of our solar system are or were inhabited or filled with life, let's say, filled with life and consciousness, but some of them came to a bad end. Each one of these planets in orbit around the sun is an offspring of solar consciousness, an outgrowth of this, the sun, the primary ray of consciousness. And the sun, or the source, has split itself into these divergent characteristics that are then interacting for the purpose of consciousness coming to know itself better. And the events, the operatic and tragic events that led to the destruction of a planet and that created the asteroid belt, and that are what caused Mars to no longer be inhabitable, that caused Mars to no longer have a magnetosphere. Those destructions are also related to the disease that exists on Earth, or the levels of disruption in the current pattern of human genetics, or life as it's expressed through human DNA right now, and that the healing of human DNA patterns right now is intimately tied to the healing of the events that caused the asteroid belt. This goes back to is the cosmic legacy, an ancient conflict that is currently being resolved in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience of each individual on Earth that uses DNA and has a corporeal form. So these mental experiences of you cultivating your energy field, learning to use your third eye, learning to consciously choose which timelines you travel upon, and cultivating your chakras and aligning your chakras from this position into this position, that has everything to do with healing the outgrowth or debris of the events from so very long ago. And I will even tell you that the fear-based reality that many people are experiencing on Earth right now, in terms of looking at the changes and shifts that are happening on an ecological level, that people are so concerned about the climate change and various catastrophes, that this is related to the ancestral memory that people have of the destruction of their planet, the planet that existed between Mars and Jupiter in very ancient times, and also the destruction, or let's say, the destruction of habitable aspects of planet Mars, and that beings who have those experiences as part of their karma now exist on Earth and are afraid of the same thing happening again. That technology is being used in a destructive way, and that it has gone awry, and that instead of people focusing on their own divine innate connection to spirit and to infinity and using spirit technology, that people are using an externally derived form of power, and the technology that comes from that can be so disruptive to energy systems. But of course, every time there are patterns that are fractal and that are being repeated in life, it's an opportunity to do something right. It's an opportunity to get it right. So it's like if you say, well, every time I make pancakes, I always burn them. Then this time that you're going to make pancakes, this time is the time you have an opportunity to do it right. And that is my message to everyone who is here at this time, that now is your opportunity to get it right. We are righting the flow of energy throughout the solar system. This is putting things right over the course of millions of years, rebalancing the flow of energy that has been going on for millions of years. So first of all, it is an enormous task, but it's also a task that is long overdue and is quite inevitable in its rebalancing. So this is a very big topic, but I feel like I've made good headway in being able to explain to you more of the subtleties of how energy is flowing through the chakras, and also more of the microscopic and macroscopic connections and the significance of how that energy is flowing. And I also hope that this lesson has made eminently clear the truth and the idea that the entire solar system is consciousness, and that there's no way for a aspect of the solar system, like one of the planets, to not be a part of that consciousness. So even though, like, let's say, little Mars over here might be dead or destroyed or severely ill or diseased or diminished in some way, it still exists or existed as consciousness. And this is to understand because all of this is part of the solar consciousness, just like all of this is part of your innate human consciousness. And we know already, according to the microcosm and macrocosm, each layer of your chakras represents a layer of consciousness. Therefore, we know and can use the analogy that each layer of consciousness is analogous to one planet in orbit in the solar system. So each planet has a consciousness associated with it. But to clarify also, like Jupiter over here, is a gaseous body, and the beings that live on a gaseous body are less dense beings. So now we're talking about the evolution and refinery of consciousness from denser planets, such as the rocky inner planets. When I say rocky, it's like they're made of rock, they're solid, to the gaseous outer bodies, gaseous outer planets. They're gas giants. They're enormous, and they're not that dense. If you or I went to Jupiter in our current present physical form, we would be crushed by the pressures there because we have these dense little bodies that are made for living on rocks. We don't have the airy, gaseous bodies that it is necessary to have to inhabit Jupiter. But rest assured, Jupiter is indeed inhabited. It is consciousness. It is a conscious planet. So if that is obvious to you, then I'm very happy that you already know about that. And if it was not something that is obvious to you, I hope that that is a new and valuable viewpoint and perspective for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this lesson. And please continue to tune in for more of an understanding of the harmonics of the solar system and its connection to the chakras on the body.